Guys, welcome back to Irish Footy Vlogs. Welcome back to another Premier Division show. Delighted to welcome JP back on. JP, how are you?
Oh, good, Keith.
Good stuff, JP. We'll start off the Loud Derby where Drogheda United were victorious over Dundalk by 2-1, and their first win against Dundalk in 5 games, and some win in the end. 0-0 at half time in this particular match. Pirot giving Drogheda the lead in 55 minutes. Jamie Gullen had equalised in 78 after Drogheda went down to 10 men when Eaton Barr came flying out of the goal and took one of the Dundalk players out of it. Ironically, Dundalk scored from the free kick, so it was a real double whammy there, wasn't it? And Hayden Khan sensationally getting the winner in injury time, and there was 10 minutes given in injury time in this one. This was in the 4th minute of injury time, and massive win. I mean, I was at this game and I vlogged it and I couldn't even talk about it at the end. You know, that kind of way. There was so much drama and it was mentally draining in a way, but in a good way. But massive win because Drogheda are on 14 points now. Dundalk are on 9, and, you know, Dundalk have a bit of a resurgence under an old king, you could argue. And it's a massive blow to them, but to lose the game and then Sligo winning as well, for example, Sligo on 17. So Dundalk are actually 8 points out of, you know, getting out of any kind of relegation mire, let's say. That's a big gap, even if they improve, isn't it? And, you know, they would have been looking to go on and win this match when it was 1-1 in stoppage time. Or sorry, yeah, 1-1 in stoppage time, or, you know, when they were down to 10 men, Drogheda, etc., etc. But to lose it, from a Dundalk point of view, first of all, to lose it in stoppage time with an extra man in the field, in a derby with so much significance, absolutely sickening for them, isn't it?
Aye, because when they went down to 10 men, got themselves back in the game from when Drogheda went down to 10 men, Dundalk got themselves back in the game from the resulting free kick. Um, Dundalk would have saw themselves as favourites to go on and win it, and
Mm.
maybe that's what happened. They possibly maybe push forward, but at the same time, you know that you win the game, you move off the bottom of the table, but um, at the same time, you don't want to lose the game either. And that's ultimately what they did. And it's a poor defensive error, I think, at the back. They don't clear their lines, and it falls for Harry Kane, and it's a brilliant finish from him.
Mm.
Um, but in terms of Pirot, like as I said before, I've seen him in the FA Cup last year against Derry, and he looked a handful, and he thought put him in the better team, and he'll score goals. Now I know it took him a while to get off the mark, and ironically it was against Derry, and he's got a few goals now since. So thankfully for Drogheda, he's starting to hit the back of the net, and especially in this game. And this was a big game, like for Drogheda, because as you say, Sligo went on to win it, or Sligo went on to win later in the afternoon, and it keeps Drogheda within touch of Sligo as well. Like it,
Mm.
but for Dundalk to be hugely disappointed that they'd lost this game from a potentially strong position of being level with 10 men and 10 minutes of injury time.
Before we move on to Drogheda as well, one thing I've noticed, and I've noticed this in previous games as well, and I really noticed it at Weavers Park. Noel King essentially sits on the bench the whole game, and Brian Gartland is out dishing out all the instructions. What do you make of that, actually? A little bit odd?
That sounds a bit like Shane Keegan and Giovanni. So it does.
Mm.
It sounds like Brian. No, it probably explains why Noel King has been brought in as for the badges. I know Dundalk are not in Europe, but I think the FAI still hold that role where in the Premier Division you have to have a pro license.
Mm.
So that kind of like maybe explains what we all wondered a few weeks ago.
Has
Um, um, eh, it's probably I know Brian Gartland said he didn't want it, but
to.
he's maybe got in there and got the bug for it, and he wants to stay in there, and he can't stay in there because
I'm
he hasn't
surprised
got the
no one
badge.
interviewing Noel King has actually thrown that out there.
If you
He'd probably
remember
tell
back to
them
his
it's
first,
none of their business.
if you remember back to his first interview where he said that it was all the work of Gartland and
Mm.
the other guy, well, I can't
Burns,
forget
isn't
his
it?
name.
Yeah.
Burns.
Yeah.
Maybe that was his way of telling us that
Mm.
without telling us, we obviously all thought because it was only a few days training or whatever. But maybe that was Noel King's way of telling us that he's only there to let them do the coaching and basically he's the manager on paper, but Gartland's going to be the manager effectively. But it'll be interesting to see long term how that works out.
Mm. I think though, from Drogheda's point of view, and I've spoken about this before, is that like they really have real character. I mean, you're thinking they're 1-1, as I said, and I was at the game. There's no way they're winning this game with a man down, and to actually not just hang on, which you thought they might have had to do, to go on and win the game. And to be honest with you, I was right beside where they won the free kick. Oisin Gallagher had no right to kind of win that free kick. It was just pure guts and determination. And just it's a great, just, you know what I mean, you never give up on anything, because what happens, it leads to a goal, and whatever Dundalk didn't defend it well enough from their point of view is irrelevant as far as Drogheda are concerned, isn't it? And you know what I mean, lost causes and winning free kicks and stuff like that, and it's a good delivery by Weir, to be fair, but look, it just shows the character at that squad, and no matter what happens this season, you know, if it does go wrong for them, they'll go down swinging if it goes wrong for them, is what I'm saying, you know?
Aye, well, Drogheda have always been like that, even in the previous regime under Dara Doyle. They were gutsy, but they seem to be a wee bit more gutsy under Kevin Doherty. Like, um, he they don't play the prettiest style of football, but they play effective. They play what suits them, and you either like it or you don't. But and you have to give them credit because they do not give up. They keep going right to the very end. You've seen that against Derry. You've seen it against Shelbourne. I know Shelbourne came back at them, but Drogheda didn't give up after Shelbourne equalised the first time. They didn't give up. They went and got themselves back in front. Um, they had a man sent off against Shamrock Rovers, but I think it was 3-0 in that game anyway. But
Mm.
they don't give up, and they never do. And you know when you play Drogheda that you're going to have to fight for your 3 points if you're going to get them, or even your point. And fair play to them. They had a fight. They went into this game as the favourites, which very rarely have they probably been that this season. And they showed that they can still do it. And like it was a, did you say when you're down to 10 men, you're just hoping for a set piece. And that's what they got. I know it touched on Dundalk didn't defend well, but that's not Drogheda's problem. They had the men in the box. They caused the problems and they stuck it away. So fair play to them. And they're 5 points clear Dundalk now, and they'll want to build upon that. I think
Mm.
is that their first win in a while, is it?
Well, they beat Sligo a few weeks ago, to be fair, Weavers Park 3-1, but it took them a while to get to that win. But
Yeah.
they've had 3 wins at home this season now. They beat Bohemians too. But yeah, as you say, it's a fantastic result for Drogheda, and very disappointing one in the end for Dundalk. At Daly Park finished Bohemians 0, Galway United 1, and Galway are up to fourth in the table. Scored 8 goals and conceded 7. It's crazy, isn't it? It's a crazy statistic after 14 matches. Like, it really is. And the only team unbeaten in 5 as well. No one else has had that kind of consistency of being unbeaten. And Nugent scores the goal, the winner, after 18 minutes, and he does well. But to be fair, there's a couple of things here. The goalkeeper, who's been very good for them this season, I have to say, makes an error. You should save it. But I think Lelander's defending before that. He just kind of turns his back a little bit, doesn't he? And makes it easy for the shot. I mean, if I'm Alan Reynolds there, like, I'm more annoyed at the defender. And a keeper can make an error, it can happen. But it was almost like a laziness from the right back there, in my opinion. And Nugent gets a shot in easily, and it leads to a goal. And Alan Reynolds, funny enough, after the game, he wasn't happy, but he seemed to suggest that people are being given a chance here. It seemed to be a
And they're not
warning to the Bow. Did you see that? It seemed to be a warning, didn't it, to the Bows players that, look, you're being given a chance here. You've got till the summer window almost, to get your act together, because I won't be. I'll get you out the door if I think you aren't putting in the graft or good enough, etc. So it was a message from his point of view. But Galway, it's another great result. I mean, they've beaten the likes of Rovers, beaten the likes of Derry on the road. They drew against Shamrock
Pretty
Rovers, didn't
well.
they? In Tallaght, didn't they? Yeah. And then they've won at Daly Park, it's always a tricky place to go to, Bowes. So fantastic win for them. And they did it while down to 10 men with about 33 minutes left in the clock.
Yeah, and when you touched on their five unbeaten, and when you look at it, it's Shelbourne at home, Sligo away, Shamrock Rovers away, Derry at home, Bows away.
The top
That's
teams would
some
take that, wouldn't they? That
that is
run.
some that is some run for them.
Yeah.
You look before that, they drew with Waterford as well, so that's six unbeaten.
It's actually six unbeaten, yeah. I
Six
just looked at
unbeaten.
the form guide,
The
the
last
last five for the teams, but yeah.
the last time they lost the game was 2-0 against Bows on Easter Monday.
Mm.
And that's the night Caulfield says was their worst performance of the season. So what a response that was to your worst performance of the season. Like it really is. And before we were in the bar before the Derry game and the Shamrock Rovers game was on the TV and we were watching that and chatting to a few Shell supporters and we were like, look, I says, God, we could be the outside bet for the top four here. They really could. They don't lose. They don't concede goals. All right, they don't score goals, but they don't concede either. And as you touched on there, was it 15 games and 8 goals scored, 7 conceded? 15
14, but
games and
still, yeah. Yeah. Very, very strange.
14 games and 15 goals and then 14 games. It's you don't get a record like it anywhere in the world, I don't think, and be fourth from the table. Um, it's an absolute fantastic one for him. I seen the goal, thought it was really poor goalkeeping.
Mm.
As you say, defender could probably do better, but I said it from day one, Keith, when Reynolds came in, that he'll be using the squad and he will have made it known that he'll want to get the July window
Mm.
and refresh it. He'll know it's not good enough. He's seeing now it's not good enough, and he's probably said this stuff behind closed doors to the players that what he said public. Now he thinks it's time to go public because they're so inconsistent that
The players are on trial, really, aren't
it's
they?
not good. Like they had 3 wins in a row, space of 7 days, and they no wins now in their last three.
Mm.
So that's kind of form that they're in, and it's probably going to be that way for the next 6 7 weeks. Do
Mm.
we get to July? So look, you can take absolutely nothing away from that, and the fact that they did it with 10 men with more than half an hour to go makes it even more incredible. But it's not surprising. I called this game as a draw, so that Keith.
Mm.
Um, but I was actually close to calling it as a Galway win, and that
Mm.
it was the same um on Friday night. I called it for a tight Derry one, and I was so close to calling it for a draw. So they're just one of them hard teams. They predict, really,
Mm.
aren't they? They're not hard to predict, but you think that the team are coming against might just age them out,
Mm.
and they do everything they can. And I think Galway Organ was in the dugout for this one again, wasn't he? Like so.
Yeah.
So John Caulfield need to be careful if he spends any more time in the stand. Ollie Horgan will be taking his spot.
Yeah, look, yeah, they've been brilliant so far at Galway. You can't overstate that, to be fair. Tallaght Stadium, a major surprise on Monday night, I think, with Shamrock Rovers being beaten 3-1 at home to Waterford FC. What a result for Waterford, though, in fairness. Absolutely brilliant. Sixth in the table themselves on 19 points. 5 points ahead of Drogheda. 5 points off Derry. That's the reality of it. They played 14 matches, but the fact that as well they went to Sligo, and you have to bear in mind as well, it's tough. They had to travel to Sligo on the Friday and then travel to Dublin, Shamrock Rovers on the Monday. And they're after getting 6 points. It's a remarkable 6 points, in my opinion. A brilliant 6 points. And the performance here, just unbelievable performance. Obviously, the first goal, I don't know what Pauls is doing there, but he makes a mess of it. McMenemy's strike is good. And Parsons scores again in Tallaght Stadium. Another cracker after doing the same thing as Cork in the playoff. Kenny scored for Shamrock Rovers. But they did have opportunities in this game, even apart from the goals. Like, they were full value for the win
Oh,
here. And, Shamrock Rovers were
absolutely,
all over the place for a lot of that game, particularly the
absolutely.
first
It
half.
wasn't it wasn't the case of Waterford scoring and sitting in
Now, this wasn't a
and
1-0
sucking
Tallaght
up
Stadium
the
smash and
kitchen.
grab job.
It was fully deserved. They scored three, very easily could have scored more.
Mm.
They were just Shamrock Rovers. They have chances. This was a performance of that. This was a type of performance with Derry went down to Tallaght a couple of months ago and played in a similar way, but didn't get the win. Shamrock Rovers did, or sorry, Waterford did.
Mm.
Um, and when you see results like that, it just shows you how competitive the division is this season, Keith. Like last year we had UCD, the year before that we had UCD and Finn Harps, and it's kind of like you knew when you're coming up them teams that was probably going to be 3 points.
Mm.
But now when you're playing a team, even Dundalk now you're rejuvenated, you're playing a team. You're not guaranteed to pick up with 3 points, and I think Connor Parsons will be he'll be taking a clip of that, and he'll be saying it Jurgen Klopp's way, so he will. um,
Yeah.
if anybody's wondering about the YouTube video a few months ago where Klopp didn't believe he was a professional footballer because he scored a playoff winner in November, and I think that was the only reason why Klopp didn't believe him was because of that.
Yeah.
But
He was
no,
obviously the
on the more
professional there, but anyway, yeah.
on the more serious note, no, fantastic one for Waterford. I know we have been telling their fans to sort of like keep a lid on it a wee bit, but when you pick up 6 points like that, you move within
And
5 points of
6 points.
third place.
Mm.
The them who are we to tell them to keep a lid on it? Why not
Mm.
dream? I said there that Galway could be an outside bet for the top four.
Mm.
Why can't Waterford be that?
Well, the more the
Um,
season goes on, but I suppose you just have to, especially early on in the season, the first port of call for the likes of Galway and Waterford has to be to think, stay away from the relegation places. And if later on in the season you're still, you're away from there and you're up there, then you can kind of look at it. But that has to be the first, you know what I
yeah,
mean, the first thing to achieve, let's say. And I would still
I
say
think.
that personally, but God, they're doing an
But
unbelievable job
what
at
I
the
will say
moment.
on that, Keith, is two times I've seen Waterford properly this year was the two games against Derry, and they were poor.
And they might argue
They
they were their two worst performances of the season. It's
yeah,
funny how you can see
they
teams
were poor.
depending. Yeah.
That's they were poor in both of those games.
Mm,
But you look at the other like Sligo away, Shamrock Rovers away, they've picked up 6 points.
mm. And to be honest with
That's
you, they were
actually
very. They should have won that Inchicore as well. To be honest with you,
yeah. They
I
drew in
think
that
the
game,
Stooge
didn't they?
are playing away better than home slightly because I think their counter-attacking style suits them a bit better. Like you know what I mean. I think their way for. I wouldn't be surprised. I haven't checked now, but I think their away form could be better than their home form. To be honest with you. I'd have to check
Yeah.
that back, but I wouldn't be surprised now if it was. But that seems to suit it. But as for Shamrock Rovers, very disappointing for them to pick up
Well,
one
they're
point.
top. They're top of the table on away form. Keith, they 14 points from 8 games,
Not surprised.
and they are bottom of the home table. They're 5 points, 6 games.
Isn't that mental? Literally top and bottom. That tells
Yeah,
it. I think their
home.
style of play suits them playing away from home, and that table, if you like, as you called it out there, would suggest that, wouldn't it? To be fair,
They've
um,
6 games at home, 5 points,
jeez,
and they've got 8 games away and 14 points.
that's a record. That's a record. But as for Shamrock Rovers, look, they'd be very disappointed because you keep thinking they're going to kick into gear. Now they're still very much there, but you keep thinking they're going to kick into gear. And for them, the positives: the return of Jack Byrne, couple of games, fish get up to speed, and I think one of the main positives for them is actually Johnny Kenny. He's on 6 goals this season. He scored. He cracked one off the bar, to be fair, in the second half. That goes in 3-2. You never know. With Rovers, they could get a third again. But I think he's excellent. I really like Johnny Kenny. I think he's one of the most intelligent forwards in the league. Last year, he wasn't quite getting the goals, so his other work was
Five
always
goals.
dismissed. Hmm?
They got 5 goals. 5 goals he scored last year. He's got six already this year. Like so,
Exactly. And I
we're
don't
seeing
think he's doing much difference. The only difference
we're
is
seeing
he's putting the ball in the net
we're
more
seeing
often.
the form that got him his move to
Yeah.
Celtic from Sligo, and that I know he's a young Irish man. He's probably grew up dreaming of playing for Celtic. But if I was him, I would be seriously looking at maybe coming back to the League of Ireland, the Shamrock Rovers, and playing well there, and maybe get a move back across again. I think
Mm. I know
playing League of
Celtic
Ireland's
seems to be a
better.
graveyard for Irish players at the moment anyway, at the best of times.
I think I think what it is, Keith, is I don't think there's a proper reserve league in Scotland.
No.
I'm not 100% on the Scottish football, so
I don't think there
I
is
don't know.
either.
I don't think there's a proper reserve league, and you don't get that opportunity to sort of like if you don't in the first team, then you're in the reserve team. And I think that's why a lot of their players are out in loan around
Mm,
the Scottish leagues, etc., or wherever.
mm,
But you look at Liam Scales went over from Shamrock Rovers and
mm,
got the look of the green, and he's in there now and he's performed this season. I think
mm.
man of match performances in the Champions League and the old the old firm derbies and stuff. But they do it at the other end of the pitch. Eh, They make that kind of move at the other end of the pitch. It takes somebody.
They seem to stockpile in a lot of young forwards, I've noticed as well, and that makes
I
the
think that
challenge harder.
yeah, and we know that they won league titles. It's goal scorers that wins the league titles, basically, isn't it? So that's why Celtic go out and they go out to Japan and they bring in this player that can score the goals and that won them a league the last couple of years. And it's similar this year. And you're a young player coming from the League of Ireland, you're going to have to prove yourself before you get that chance. So it's good to see him back to his form he was a couple of years ago at Sligo. I think what did he score at? Did he score 15 goals or something that year?
Oh,
I'm not
easily, I
sure,
think.
but
Yeah, yeah.
but
But he's not
yeah,
with him.
look,
I don't think he's one of these players that I don't fully see him just as a goal scorer. A lot of them selfish moves and stuff like that, and his movement is very excellent and intelligent. And I don't think he's doing anything different to last season from when I've seen him play, except for put the ball in the net. That's the big difference, and obviously it is a big difference. But he wasn't playing poorly last year, as such. Was
no,
the point I'm trying to make,
uh,
really.
probably wasn't getting the same kind of service as he is this year. We
Mm,
know Shamrock Rovers they're better this year than they were last year. Well, I think they have been.
mm,
I think last year Rovers won the league, but it was more of they were the most, as Keane put it a couple of years ago. Shamrock Rovers were the most consistent of the inconsistent last year, weren't they? Really,
mm,
every team like you look at the year before where they went on an 11 match winning streak at some point in the season. They didn't quite do that last year, but they won the league with a few games to spare,
mm,
and deservedly so. And I think they're a better team this year. I watched them the Brandywell for 15 minutes. They absolutely clicked and they took the game away from us. But Waterford in this game were absolutely magnificent. Like the first goal was really poor from Leon Pole's point of view. I think he feels a touch
mm.
and tries to win a free kick.
Doesn't
And
realise
when
it's
you
from his own player.
there, I think that's what he's done. He's tried to catch the ball and felt the touch and didn't realise it's his own player and he's got it all wrong. And when Rovers came hit back straight away, Waterford could have went into their shell, but they didn't. They got back out and scored the second goal after 17 minutes. And the goal from Connor Parsons, like
Mm.
it's
Left
perfect
foot.
from Shamrock Rovers' point of view.
Mm,
They do what they always do. They try and play out, but they just don't realise there's somebody behind them. They nick it
mm.
off them. So it was a great finish, and it could have been more. Um, but Shamrock Rovers, Shelbourne probably can't believe their luck that their run of form of winning games has
But
stopped,
we'll
but
get into Shelbourne later, but I think
they're
that's
still.
one
No,
win
no,
and
I know,
seven
but
for Shelbourne, isn't
like,
it?
what's that?
I think it's one win and seven for Shelbourne, which is the funny thing.
Something like that, and they're
Yeah,
still top of the league, and it's because Derry and Shamrock Rovers just can't seem to put
crazy.
together that type of run that
Yeah.
Shelbourne did over the first 9 games.
Mm.
Um, but I was to say we'll talk about Shelbourne in a wee while, but we just keep saying every week Rovers get a win, we think, or a couple of wins in a row, and you're saying right that same has clicked, and then all of a sudden they get a draw against Galway, they get a defeat against Waterford. Um, I think we're actually talking now, Nick Keith, after the game, and it could well be the lowest points tally that wins the league this year. I think that Rovers won it on 60 odd last year. You could well be down the low 60s this year. They won it. That's how tight it seems to be. It seems
Yeah.
like it's going to be.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. At the showgrounds, finished Sligo Rovers 1, St. Patrick's Leg nil. Obviously, there's a big story at the back of this now as well. But yeah, from Sligo's point of view, excellent win. Really dug in the match. I don't think they played particularly brilliant, but the way Pats are at the moment, and I just wonder if there was a sense from the dressing room and players what was going to happen. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's hard to tell. But Pat started the game off okay, and they had chances. Rory Keating should have put them ahead. Keeley had a chance. But as often has happened in Pat's games this season, it disintegrated and it got worse as the game went on. And look, Ellis Chapman's strike, I have to say, in 22 minutes, very good strike. He's got a number of goals this season for Sligo. He's flying. And Sligo, look, I think they just grounded out the win, if I'm honest with you, JP. Pats were kind of, as I said, the usual, the way they have been this season. It's a poor result. It left Pats, I suppose, seventh on the table, 4 points above Drogheda, and Drogheda have a game in hand when you think about it. And I suppose we'll get on to the sacking of John Daly now. And right decision for you?
Possibly,
The
possibly.
pause.
I know some Pats fans are divided on that, Keith. I know there's some saying bit more time, some are saying, yeah, time to go. Possibly because when you look at it, I think he's lost the same amount of matches as Dundalk, hasn't he? So,
Yep, 7.
but he still, but he still finds himself 6 points off top three, even though he's lost
But does
seven
that
matches.
justify the performances they've had in the 15 games, let's say, do you think?
Hmm, no, no. Um,
Mm.
I think the other week at the Brandywell, the 3-1 game, they had a lot of the ball, but did nothing with it.
Well, that was like that in the second half against Sligo. It was like that in the game against Shelbourne. Just examples. Drogheda away. There's 4
yeah,
examples very quickly, you
yeah.
know.
The Derry game early in the season, they went 1-0 up, but they retreated. They try and hold on, and
Mm,
ended up losing the game. So,
mm,
um, it's probably a decision they could have taken at any point this season. They could have
mm.
taken it after the 3 defeats in a row early on. They didn't. They could have taken it again a couple of weeks ago. They didn't,
They
but they
must have
have
looked
taken
at
it.
it, JP, from the club's point of view and said, as you said there, they probably looked at those little snippets or little band of matches and have kind of come to the conclusion now of this isn't actually going to improve, is it, anytime soon? Now, there's always no guarantee that a manager comes in. You'd like to think that they have one or two earmarked, because surely you're looking at this from a good few weeks ago, maybe, and just trying to suss out what could be there and what may not be there. I don't think the Pats squad is as strong as some people thought it was, but to be seventh in the league after 15 matches, lost 7 games, I think they're probably better than that, to be
Yeah,
honest.
you'd be expecting Emmons to be potentially another 9 points on
Mm.
that total. To be maybe top of the table. But that's what they would have been expecting if
Mm.
they're in Shelbourne or Derry and some Shamrock
Considering the
Rovers with.
points total, as you say, Shelbourne are top with a low points total at 27. I think that's the point as well.
Yeah,
Everyone has a kind of a low points total, and teams maybe like Galway, Bows, and Waterford. No, it's no
with a high
disrespect
points
to them,
total.
but a lot of people would expect the Pats to be above those teams.
Yeah,
They would have
like
thought.
at the start of the season, some
Mm,
Pats ambitions would have been, well, if Derry and Rovers are off it slightly in the early part of the season, then we need to be the team that's going to be
exactly.
on top, and they're not. It's Shelbourne.
Exactly.
Shelbourne are still there. They're hanging on there. How longer can they hang on?
Mm,
But they're seventh. Say Pats are in seventh,
mm.
and the board have probably looked at it and saying, right, we're 8 weeks away from Europe.
And also,
We need to
JP,
get
the
it.
run of fixtures coming up, they have Shamrock Rovers and Derry, and I think it's Bows. And they're probably thinking, it's not going to improve at this point, that looking at those games and saying, geez, we could be in the relegation mire after
All
those
right,
games.
well, the board are probably looking at it, Keith, and saying we're 10 weeks away from Europe. We need to get a manager in. We need to get a run of fixtures together.
Mm,
Somebody that's going to take us in to Europe. But like they've looked at them snippets of fixtures and thought, right, well, John Daly's not the man anymore. We need to get somebody and give him a chance. They build a team, build a style of play for going into Europe, and
mm,
yeah, they've probably looked ahead at the league fixtures and they're probably thinking, well, we can't go any further behind the top three or
mm,
four than what we already are. So, look, I think some Pats fans are divided on the decision, but I think that's
mm.
probably loyalty due to they winning the cup. But
Yeah.
um, yeah,
And look,
it's
you have to give him credit for winning the cup, and You know what I mean? He did well to win the cup last year and it was fantastic. You know yourself, you win a trophy, like it's fantastic to win a trophy. Like, no matter who you are in the league, League of Ireland or whatever. But I personally do think it was the right decision. I didn't see any improvement, and I felt that a couple of months ago. A couple of months later, there hasn't been any improvement. I feel the style he tried to put within the squad, in my opinion, was never going to work in the League of Ireland in particular. I think the players lost belief in it, to be honest, from what I could see on the pitch. I don't think it was a case of the players not trying. I think they just lost belief in it. And eventually, something has to give there, and that's just the way it is, really. It's I don't know where they go next. It'd be interesting to see what happens there. But from Sligo's
Well,
point of view,
And, Stephen Kenny and Ian Barclough seem to be the two names, but
true, but they were also linked to the Bowles job. So is this a copy and paste scenario?
I can't see Kenny going anywhere near Pats as long as Brian Kerr's there. To be honest,
Exactly. If you did, it'd be interesting actually. But
mm,
as for
great.
Sligo Rovers, like they won't care about that. They just needed 3 points, and they got the 3 points. A very important 3 points because they've been decimated with injuries. I know other teams have as well, but we've talked about before. Their squad is quite weak in terms of quality bench players and numbers and that. And young Reynolds played right back in the game. Academy player made his debut and had a good game. And John Russell be relieved to get the 3 points there because probably if they'd lost, he could have been under serious pressure, if I'm honest.
You would think so, yeah, because Waterford had won, Galway had won, Drogheda had won. So Sligo needed that one really to keep themselves away from Drogheda, but they also keep themselves within parts of the three that I mentioned there.
Yeah.
And also, like as I said, Galway are potentially a team that could be um an outsider for the top four. And Sligo are thinking, right, well, Galway's only up. We're in this league a few years.
Hmm.
Why can't we be a contender for the top four? So that 3 points keeps them within striking range of that. So
Hmm.
yeah, I think as long as Sligo are head above water in terms of the relegation zone, I don't think Sligo are aboard or that pull the plug far too early.
Hmm.
I think they will recognise that this squad, it's
Yeah.
in terms of quality, it's probably not there. Maybe what it was last year, even though they struggled last year. But
I think quickly, JP,
they had
just
a lot of top names last year, didn't they? Really.
yeah.
Where this year they've sort of gone more League of Ireland style,
Hmm.
and they're going to give them a chance. They do it, and so far it's probably going the way it is. Like they started off with 12 points the first 7 8 games.
Hmm.
They've got 17 now. Like so, they are keeping their away from Drogheda. Um, but I can't see the Sligo board being too hasty on John Russell.
I think the only concern for me is Mata and McGinty. If the two of them go back, if they lose the two,
Mm.
I think McGinty's more important to keep, to be honest. But
Yeah.
if the
Or if they
two of
lost
them are
one
to
of them,
come back,
then
that's a
if
big
they
thing, I
lost
think. Huh?
if they lost one, I think McGinty's more important because I don't think they create enough for Mata. They be banging in the goals that
Mm.
he did before.
Yeah,
So when they're on the back foot, they need McGinty to keep him in games.
yeah,
And I think if they lost him or lost him to injury,
yeah.
that's where it potentially could go wrong for Sligo. Like, but um, look, as long as they've them two, you have to fancy them. They keep clear of Drogheda, but we don't know what the situation is with them. Do they go back in the summer to their parent clubs, or are they going to be
I'm
allowed to
sure they're
stay?
trying to keep them, but we'll see what happens. It's up to the clubs as well. If Shrewsbury want,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, Mata to go back, who knows? But at the Brandywell finished, Derry City won, Shelbourne won. I watched this one as well. 3 games I've seen out of the 5, like fully, if you like. And obviously McMullen, who was excellent in this game, actually gave Derry the lead in 56 minutes with a wonderful strike. Sean Boyd equalised in the 89th minute, and I have to say it was a really good goal the way he gets across the defender. Like it was kind of it reminded me of Niall Quinn or something like that. But I thought Derry, watching the game, I thought Derry had chances to kill the game. I don't think they killed the game, obviously, and I always felt because of that, you'd never rule Shelbourne out of an equaliser, and they got that. And from Shelbourne's point of view, to go up to the Brandywell, and definitely in the circumstances of the game, it's a brilliant point, isn't it, for them?
It is, yeah. I think Derry will be disappointed in how the goal came about. Um, it was a result that you're not surprised at. As you
No.
say, Derry had a chance to kill it off. The save from Adam O'Reilly from Cairns was key because if that goes in, Derry could potentially go and maybe win the game by another goal or so. I think there was another chance that Derry had, but I can't mine off the top of my head.
Even Hooban had a great chance. You'd expect him to score. Now, I know the game was 0-0 at this point, but the header chance, do you remember that one? That's a typical Hooban goal.
yeah, that one, yeah, he
Yeah,
didn't quite get it. He didn't
no,
quite get it. But
it wasn't 0-0.
I think it was in the first half. There was a chance, I think, between McMullen's and Adam O'Reilly's that
Mm.
Derry had Ben Doherty going through and goal.
Yeah.
Defender got back and got his toe on it. So then if like I know people are criticizing Derry for not seeing the game out, or Higgins making a substitution, which look,
Mm.
these things happen. He
I
brought the
don't think
yellow
though,
on.
and I know Derry
Tried
have
to
got
shore up.
this.
He brought the yellow on. He tried to shore up the midfield.
Yeah.
Um, you can't blame the substitution. We
No.
had the ball down our left side. We didn't. We only chased it so far, and then we didn't stop across the other side of the pitch. And then McJanet is going down trying to head it clear, and Sean Boyd sticking his toe on it. They put it in the net, and I'm just wondering, should McJanet maybe have stood up and try to get his body in front of it?
Mm.
But a really disappointing goal to concede. But it delighted goal that Derry scored because they don't do it often enough against Shelbourne. It's put them on their P when the ball's at the feet, and that's what they did. They harassed Cairns, they harassed the defender, and then Mullen has it's not an easy strike, but he
No.
takes it well for his first goal for Derry, and
Well,
thought
yeah.
he was brilliant. But
Yeah.
I thought the referee Keith was absolutely dreadful for both teams. He didn't allow a lot
Who
to
was the
go.
referee again?
Paul McLaughlin,
I was McLaughlin. I couldn't remember back. I'd seen
he
that many
didn't
games.
allow
I couldn't remember.
he didn't allow the game to flow.
Mm.
He gave yellow cards that weren't yellow cards. He gave stuff that wasn't yellow card, stuff that should have been yellow cards. He didn't give that. Um, and ultimately, I ultimately, you can edit that bit out.
I
Um,
might leave it in.
ultimately, Ronan Boyce is on a yellow card. Now they have to see that back again, but it looked like he
Mm.
won the ball from where I was. He doesn't go and close the ball down. Is he conscious in his head that maybe Will Jarvis, or
I
was it
think
Will
he was.
Jarvis, crossed the ball?
Was Jarvis, yeah.
If he goes past him and goes down, the referee's going to send him off because it seemed that kind of night. So look, Shelbourne, they scored. Referee didn't help them score the goal, but I just thought I'd get that in there. I thought the referee was really poor from one of the referees who a few years ago was one of the top officials in the league, and the standards have dropped completely, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think as well with Shelbourne there, they just have this knack though, don't they, digging in, and they're real tight knit group. You can
Yeah,
see it. They mightn't have necessarily the best individuals in the league. They do have some good players, by the way, but they're so tight knit and they just hang in there
and
and stay in the game, don't they?
Shelbourne do they dig in even when they're not playing well. They hang in games, and they more often than not they get a point out of it. You've seen what they did down in Drogheda, the deep into stoppage time. Sean Boyd, I think that night again got
Mm,
an equal. So look, they'll be wondering how they're still top of the league. And I think what did you say earlier was 1 win and 7.
mm.
Um,
When you think about
and
it, it's
and
mental, isn't it? And still
it's
three
like,
clear.
but if you also think about it, Derry went down there on Easter Monday, which was 4 weeks ago. Were potentially a loss from going 11 points behind them. So you look at it from Derry's point of view that they've cut that gap to three
Yeah.
from eight, which is you obviously would have liked it to be all square. But they still be within 3 points. At this stage of the season, your level with Shamrock Rovers. It's you still have to look in the positives from Derry. And but Shelbourne, I think who have they got next? It's Drogheda at home, which won't be easy for them. Like we spoke about Drogheda earlier, and how well they tend to dig in as well. And
They
they,
tend
they
to do
gave
well for
Shelbourne,
some reason at home to Drogheda, though. They've a good records at home to Drogheda there.
yeah,
But yeah, I
yeah.
agree with you.
But it's
There's 15 games gone, JP.
If we're in for them,
Can they win the league, do you think?
why not?
Hmm.
That if Derry and Shamrock Rovers continue to drop
Hmm.
points, um, then yeah, they can. But if one of those two at some point over the next 10 games, 11 games
Win
start
7 of the next 10 games, let's say.
put a run together,
Yeah.
that's where it could leave Shelbourne behind, as if one of them two teams decide we've had enough of this, we're going on a run.
I think my
But
feeling with Shelbourne is, JP, is
as
if
long
they're
as those
going to
two,
win it, they have to hang on the first place, if that makes sense.
yeah, I don't think they'll be able to chase. I think they're going to have to stay in front, so they are. Um, but it's when it gets to July time. I know the European games are getting played now, so
Yeah.
they'll not have fixture congestion.
Yeah.
But it's when they get to July time and they're traveling with Europe, etc. Um, that's that's where to become interesting, especially if they get through a round or two as well.
Hmm.
And then that's when fixture congestion comes into it, when you have to um play games that haven't been brought forward. So
Hmm.
I think if they're going to win it, Keith, they're going to have to do what Leicester did a few years ago in the Premier League and stay in front. I think if Derry or Rovers overtake them,
Well, you talked
that's
about
where,
the points total earlier on. The lower the points total, the better for Shelbourne, too. Because that's what
yeah, because
Leicester won it with a low points total.
I think Leicester had sealed it on something like 70 points. When you look at it now,
71 or something. Yeah, it's mental.
they sealed it on 70 points or something and finished
Yeah.
on
Oh,
77.
yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Um, and if you look at it now in the Premier League, you have to be hitting 90s at least. They want it. Where this could be the season where if it's in the lows, I talked about it being in the low 60s. I think Shamrock Rovers last year was 70 odd, but they might have sealed it in something like 67, 68.
Mhm.
I think the winner could end up in something 65, between 61 and 65 this year. And if it's at that, that's where Shelbourne could become the winners. Um, but I think as long as they're top of the table, yes, they can win it. They're in the race. Speaking to their fans on Monday night, they don't think they'll stay in it because they think that eventually Derry will, or not Derry, but one of Derry or Shamrock Rovers will overtake them.
Does Ian O'Dowd
Um,
think that?
I think he does, Keith,
Yeah.
or Keith. I think it was actually
He
him
can let
said
us know, he
said
can
to
let us
me.
know in the comments.
I think it was actually him said to me that he thinks that they'll probably not win it, but they're just happy to be in contention at this stage of the
Definitely.
season. And he does recognise as well that the
Because if you're a fan from a Shelbourne point of view as well, you feel like you've not much to lose unless they completely fell out of
no,
Europe. But I don't think that's going to happen, you know?
you haven't much to lose. They're going to get top three. I think that's guaranteed.
I
They're
think
going to get
so,
top
yeah.
three.
I think
They're
so.
not going to drop away. They're not going to drop away that much that they're going to lose out in Europe completely. Because you know, 9 times out of 10, you finish fourth, you're going to get into Europe anyway. Because the cup winners tend to come from the top three. Again, could be different this year. Who knows? I think it's 2012 was the last time that didn't happen. But I think the three teams that's in the top three now, I think they're going to stay there. It's just about what order. And there's no reason at the minute why Shelbourne can't be number one. But I think I take your point. I think for them, if they want it, they're going to have to stay in front. I think if they have to chase, I think that's where it could become tricky for them. And look, Duff's doing a magnificent job. He's made them hard to beat. They've got a good squad there. You looked at the options on the bench the other night. They Keith Ward, Sean Boyd, um, League of Ireland regulars like through the years, and I thought Mark Coyle was absolutely excellent
Mm,
for them again. Keith,
mm,
and midfield,
mm.
he's absolutely brilliant. So he is. What a signing he's been for them. Um, and I think he's key. I think if they're going to win it, I think it's key. The key to keeping him fit, I think, and potentially maybe Gavin Malloy at the back as well.
Mm. Yeah, well, one thing's for sure, it's very exciting from week to week, and you don't know what's going to happen from week to week, and I think that's absolutely brilliant. But guys, let us or guys at home, I should say, let us know what you think in the comments. Waterford fans, you must be happy this week. Subscribe to the channel, and thanks again, JP, for coming on. Fantastic stuff, fair play.
Yes,
Brilliant. Cheers.